It shows how you can use user-defined Ajax callbacks to write information to a transaction table. So you can see here that we have a very simple grid based on the Alpha Sports MDB that ships with Alpha 5, and we've added a new table to the database called My Transactions, and you can see that currently there are no records in My Transactions. And so the goal is that whenever I press this button over here, we do an Ajax callback and we add a new record to the transaction table, and we fill information into the transaction table with data from the current record. So I'm going to go here and say add new record to transaction table, and I get my message back saying that one record was inserted. And now if I go and look at the transaction table, you can see it's got one record in it. If I press this another time and I look at the transaction table, I'll see it now has two records in it. Let's go there, for example, and now look at the transaction table, and you can see now that it's got three records. So let's go take a look now at how this was done. So let's go back to design mode, and you can see now that this button over here, which is the button that adds the new record to the transaction table, was defined using action JavaScript, and we chose the Ajax callback, which is the user-defined Ajax callback. And you can see that we're calling an XBasic function called add transaction, and most importantly, because this is a read-only grid, by default no information from the current row other than the primary key would be submitted. But if you click this compute current row data, then we will basically on the server compute all the data for the current row based on the primary key. So if your grid was read-only, you need to check this. If your grid is not read-only, then you don't need to check this button. So anyway, let's go ahead now, and what we'll need to do now is investigate what's inside this add transaction XBasic function. So we can get the prototype. When we create this function for the first time, we can click this button over here, and that gives us the prototype of the function, which we can copy to the clipboard. And then let's go and take a look at the actual implementation of that function, which will be here in XBasic function declarations. And so here's the code basically. So in the code you can see that the first thing that we do is we get a connection object, and then we open up our named connection, which in this case is Alpha Sports. If there's an error, if for some reason we can't connect to the database, then we send back a message. So this function returns JavaScript. That's the whole point of the Ajax, the user-defined Ajax callback. So we need to send back some our response that this function needs to return is JavaScript. So we send back an alert saying that we could not connect to the database, excepting that I need to delete that value there. So that's our response if we can't connect. Then we go ahead here and we create our SQL insert statement that's going to insert values into the My Transaction table. And you can see that our insert statement uses arguments for all of the values that get inserted into the fields. Then we dim a SQL arguments object over here, and we add new arguments for each of the arguments that was used over here. But it's important that we, since all of the values that get submitted in an Ajax callback are character values, we need to convert them to the appropriate data type before we do the insert. So you can see here that customer ID, which is a numeric field, gets converted into a number before it gets before we add the new argument. If, for example, we were setting data in a date time field, we would use convert type, and then that would be a T over there for time. If it was just a short date field, we would use D as the data type. In this case we don't have any time fields, we just have the single numeric field, so we're adding that argument value over there. And so I'm about to run out of time right now, so let me pause this and pick it up in the next video.